Most people don't question the world they wake up in, but not you. You saw something, felt something, a glitch, a gap, a whisper. Welcome to Quantum Cracks. Tonight, we open the file on Operation Paperclip.
Did you know that the US government once hired Hitler's scientists? Do you believe that? After all those years of Nazi propaganda, the United States actually gave amnesty to the very people who designed the terrifying weapons used during World War II. It might sound like the plot of a movie, but it is actually a reality that has been kept secret for decades. In the immediate aftermath of World War II, the US government initiated a classified program known as Operation Paperclip. It involved the recruitment of over 1,600 prominent members of the Third Reich, including scientists, engineers, and technicians. These individuals were offered lucrative positions and generous compensation packages in exchange for their expertise. However, there is a catch. Many of these scientists had direct ties to some of the most heinous war crimes committed during World War II, including human experimentation, forced labor, and even genocide. This revelation raises disturbing questions about the lengths to which the US government went in order to secure victory and maintain its position of global dominance. Join us today as we delve into the dark history of Operation Paperclip and explore how the US government's desperate measures may have contributed to the atrocities committed by the Third Reich. Could it be possible that in order to win the war, America did the unthinkable? Let's find out. The year is 1945, and World War II has come to an end. The victorious Allied forces are celebrating, but they have a big problem on their hands. What to do with all of the captured German scientists and military personnel? As it turns out, the US government had already given the matter some thought. In June of that year, President Harry S. Truman gave the green light to Operation Paperclip, a top-secret plan to recruit former Nazi scientists and bring them to the United States. The goal? To use their knowledge and expertise to advance American interests in the fields of science and technology. However, there was one major stipulation set forth by President Truman. No known war criminals or committed Nazis were to be hired. But when the dust settled and the first group of German scientists arrived in the US, it became clear that this rule wasn't being followed. The OSS, the precursor to the CIA, had brought in hundreds of scientists without bothering to check their backgrounds thoroughly. And among them were some well-known Nazis. One of the most prominent was Wernher von Braun, a rocket scientist who had been instrumental in developing the V-2 rocket for the Third Reich. Another was Arthur Rudolph, the man responsible for overseeing the construction of Germany's advanced jet aircraft during the war. Despite their shady past, these scientists and many others like them were welcomed with open arms by the US government. They were given handsome salaries, luxurious homes, and generous benefits. And they quickly got to work applying their talents to help the Americans achieve their goals. Between 1945 and 1959, over 1,600 German scientists were brought to the US through Operation Paperclip. The influx of Nazi scientists sparked both excitement and controversy in equal measure. On one hand, the US government was eager to harness their knowledge and expertise to advance its own scientific and military capabilities. On the other hand, there were growing concerns about the ethical implications of working with individuals who had ties to such heinous war crimes. The scientists brought to the US through Operation Paperclip were not just any ordinary individuals. They were some of the brightest minds in Germany, and their expertise was highly sought after by the US government. Many of them had been involved in developing cutting-edge technologies that could give the US a significant advantage in the ongoing Cold War. For example, the aforementioned Wernher von Braun would later become a key architect of NASA's Saturn V rocket, the powerful spacecraft that propelled the Apollo missions to the moon. But the real cost of this program was not just the money and resources invested in bringing these scientists to the US, but also the moral compromise that came with it. Many of the scientists had close ties to the atrocities committed by the Nazi regime, and their presence in the US raised concerns about the country's commitment to justice and accountability. Despite the controversy, Operation Paperclip continued for several years. The US government was willing to overlook the scientists' past in order to secure America's position of global dominance. And it wasn't until the 1970s that the full extent of the program was revealed. As the years passed, the US government did its best to keep the program a secret. It was only through the efforts of investigative journalists and historians that the truth slowly began to emerge. What they uncovered was a disturbing tale of compromise and moral ambiguity. Many of the scientists brought to the US through Operation Paperclip had direct ties to the horrors of the Holocaust. Some of them had been involved in developing the very weapons that were used to carry out the atrocities. Others had overseen the forced labor of concentration camp prisoners. Yet, despite their involvement in such heinous acts, they were able to escape prosecution and start new lives in the US with little or no public scrutiny. The US government went to great lengths to keep the scientists' past a secret. Their records were often sanitized to remove any mention of their involvement in war crimes or other atrocities. In some cases, false identities were created to help the scientists blend in and avoid detection. Now, you may be wondering why the US government went to such extreme measures to protect these scientists. The answer lies in the value that the government placed on their expertise. As the Cold War intensified, the US government was eager to secure its position of global dominance. And these scientists were seen as valuable assets in the race for technological superiority. For example, the aforementioned Wernher von Braun's expertise in rocket science was crucial in developing the ballistic missiles that would eventually be used in the space race. Similarly, other scientists brought to the US through Operation Paperclip made significant contributions to fields such as aviation, chemical engineering, and nuclear physics. Despite the contributions they made, it's important to remember that these scientists were not just valuable assets, they were human beings who had played a role in some of the worst atrocities of the 20th century. Their past should not be forgotten or ignored, but acknowledged and understood in order to learn from the mistakes of the past. Conspiracy theorists have seized on the revelations surrounding Operation Paperclip as fresh evidence of the shadowy alliances and compromises made by governments in the darkest days of war. They argue that the US government's willingness to overlook the scientists' past is proof of a larger agenda to maintain control and power at any cost. Some conspiracy theorists even go so far as to suggest that the scientists were brought to the US as part of a plan to develop advanced weapons and technologies that could be used for nefarious purposes. They point to the fact that many of the scientists were involved in developing cutting-edge technologies that could have had both military and civilian applications as evidence of a hidden agenda. Furthermore, conspiracy theorists argue that the US government's efforts to keep the program a secret is further evidence of its questionable motives. If there was nothing to hide, why go to such extreme measures to protect the scientists' identities and backgrounds? Whether or not there is any truth to these conspiracy theories is difficult to say. But what is clear is that Operation Paperclip was a controversial program that raised serious ethical questions about the lengths to which governments will go to secure their interests. The reality of that time was heavily influenced by the geopolitics swirling around. Once the Nazis were defeated, the former Soviet allies emerged as the new big threat, thanks to their communist ideology. It became super important for the Americans to stay ahead in military technology, right? This urgency drove them to make some pretty questionable decisions. They had to put aside any moral dilemmas, and believe it or not, welcomed former Nazis into their fold to tap into their expertise. And yeah, the Soviets were doing something similar, but there's just not as much documented evidence about it. It's wild to think about how these choices shaped the future, all in the name of staying competitive. Today, the legacy of Operation Paperclip continues to be debated. Some argue that it was a necessary evil that helped the US secure its position of global dominance, and that the contributions of these scientists far outweigh their past atrocities. Others argue that the program was a shameful chapter in American history that should never be forgotten, and that the US government's willingness to overlook the scientists' past was a betrayal of the principles of justice and accountability. Ultimately, Operation Paperclip is a reminder of the complex moral issues that arise in times of war and the difficult decisions that leaders must make. It is a story of scientific brilliance and innovation, but also of human cruelty and compromise. And it is a story that should continue to be told and debated for years to come. What do you think? Do you believe that the US government did the right thing by bringing these scientists to America? Or do you think that they should have been left to face justice for their crimes? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and see you next time. In the meantime, check out some of our other videos. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more historical tales.